I never planned on running for my life through a neon-lit, rain-drenched city, but here I am. My cybernetic implants buzz with distress signals as security drones sweep the alleyways, scanning for any trace of me. I should have known taking a job from Dr. Aldrich Voss was a mistake. The man was a legend in bioengineering, famous for pushing boundaries that should never be crossed. He was also reckless, obsessed with accelerating evolution beyond its natural course. The job had seemed simple at first: assist in a classified xenobiology project, get paid, and disappear. But the moment I saw her, I knew I was in too deep. The subject was Nixian, a rare alien species known for their shimmering lavender skin, near-perfect humanoid appearance, and strict cultural modesty. Their telepathic abilities made them enigmatic, their bioluminescence stunning, and their physiology an evolutionary marvel. The Nixians were fragile by human standards, delicate, slender beings with heightened agility but limited physical strength. But Voss wanted to change that. The lab was a sleek, sterile chamber buried beneath a corporate tower, lined with pulsating monitors and containment pods. Zafara, the Nixian test subject, sat motionless inside the transparent chamber, her silver irises reflecting the glowing interface that surrounded her. She was small by human standards, barely reaching my chest, and draped in a flowing Nixian robe until Voss's serum took effect. I remember the moment it happened, the eerie silence that followed the injection. The way Zafara tensed, her slender fingers clenching into fists. The veins beneath her skin shimmered, glowing like molten silver. Then she gasped, her body convulsing violently. "Something's wrong," I muttered, stepping forward. Voss, ever the scientist, was enthralled. He leaned closer, his gloved hands tightening around the control panel. "No, this is incredible." The glowing in her skin intensified. Then she began to change. Her body stretched, limbs lengthening, frame expanding in ways that defied Nixian biology. Her robe strained against her growing form, seams snapping as her figure took on proportions completely unnatural for her kind. Her once slender frame became curvier, stronger, and then she looked down at us. She had tripled in size. The containment chamber groaned under the sudden pressure of her enlarged form. Zafara's expression shifted from confusion to sheer horror. She tried to pull the remnants of her robe around her, but it barely covered anything. Her violet eyes darted to her reflection in the glass, taking in the drastic changes to her body, especially to certain areas Nixians considered almost sacred. In their modesty, her entire face darkened in a deep indigo flush. Then she let out a scream. The sound shattered every screen in the lab, sent a shockwave through the room that knocked Voss and the other scientists off their feet. I barely managed to keep my balance as she moved, a single frantic motion that sent cracked spiderwebbing through the containment glass. "Restrain her!" Voss barked, slamming his fist against the emergency controls. Too late. With a sudden burst of power, Zafara broke free. The reinforced chamber exploded outward in a blinding storm of shattered glass and energy. I threw my arms up as a wave of force sent me skidding across the lab floor. Alarms blared, the air filled with the acrid scent of burnt circuits and ozone. I coughed, blinking through the smoke, and looked up. Zafara stood amid the wreckage, towering over the lab. Her breath was ragged, her massive hands gripping her temples as she tried to process what had just happened. Sparks rained down around her, the ruined chamber barely recognizable. Voss, ever the scientist, stared at her in awe. "Magnificent," he whispered. Zafara's gaze snapped to him. "You did this to me," she said. Her voice, once soft and melodic, now carried a deeper, more commanding resonance. Voss straightened, brushing off his lab coat like he hadn't just witnessed the impossible. "You are the future of your species, my dear. This is evolution." Her fists clenched. "This is a curse." She took a step forward. The ground shook. Equipment toppled. Scientists scrambled away in terror. I knew where this was going. Zephyra, wait! The doors burst open before I could say another word. Corporate security stormed in, weapons primed, exosuits gleaming under the emergency lights. The lead officer took one look at Zephyra and immediately barked, "Contain the asset. Lethal force authorized if necessary." Asset. The way Zephyra flinched at the word made my stomach twist. Voss raised a hand. "No, no, you imbeciles. We need her. Alive." Zephyra didn't give them the chance. With a flick of her wrist, she tore a lab console from the floor and hurled it. It smashed into the squad like a wrecking ball, sending bodies and debris flying. The rest of the security force opened fire. I dove behind a control panel. As plasma rounds filled the air, Zephyra let out another furious cry, her body glowing as she charged through the gunfire, knocking aside armored soldiers like they were toys. The lab was a war zone. I had to make a choice. Stay and get caught in the crossfire, or take my chances escaping with the most powerful, most wanted being in the city. Not much of a choice. I sprinted toward her, dodging falling debris and stray energy blasts. "Zephyra, if you don't want to be their property, we have to run." She looked at me, panic flashing across her expression. I can't go out there like this." Another plasma round whizzed past. I grabbed her massive hand, what little I could. Grip, and shouted, "Move!" Then she took one step forward and brought the entire east wall down. Glass, steel, and concrete crumbled as Zephyra's sheer size and strength tore through the lab's outer structure like paper. The neon glow of the midnight cityscape spilled into the chaos. Below us, the sprawling metropolis pulsed with lights, filled with towering skyscrapers, flying cars, and millions of unsuspecting people who had no idea what had just been unleashed. Zephyra stared at the skyline, her breath shaky. Then she looked at me. "Where do we go?" The sound of incoming security drones screeched from above. I pulled her toward the ledge. "Anywhere but here." And with that, we jumped into the night. Falling through the night, wind howling past, my mind raced through every possible way you could go wrong. Zephyra, still grappling with her impossible transformation, flailed as we plummeted from the shattered lab wall. Her oversized form made her movements uncoordinated, her panic evident. I, on the other hand, had a plan, a half-baked, likely suicidal plan, but a plan nonetheless. "Zephyra, stop struggling," I shouted over the rushing air. "We're falling." She shrieked telepathically, her thoughts bursting through my skull like a blaring alarm. "Yeah, and I like my bones intact, so trust me for 5 seconds. Below us, the city stretched out like an endless sea of neon and steel. We weren't just high up. We were at the corporate district's peak, where the elite lived far above the polluted underbelly. Skyscrapers clawed at the sky, sky rails zipped between them, and anti-grav platforms hovered between structures like suspended islands. We just needed to land on one of those platforms before we hit the lower sectors. As we fell, I reached for the grapple line on my belt, praying it wouldn't snap under the weight of a 3 times larger than normal Nixian. Target locked. A floating cargo hauler hovered ahead, just close enough. I fired. The line shot forward, latching onto the hauler's edge with a magnetic clank. The jolt nearly ripped my arm from its socket. I gritted my teeth and tightened my grip. "Zephyra, grab me!" She did, a little too well. With panic-fueled strength, she yanked me into her grasp like I was nothing more than a rag doll. My ribs protested violently as she clutched me against her massive chest. "Not what I meant," I gasped. The extra weight sent us into a wild pendulum swing. The cable strained, sparks flying as we careened toward the platform. I braced for impact. Zephyra crashed first. The hauler shuddered under the force of her landing, metal groaning as her enlarged form sprawled across the surface. I tumbled beside her, narrowly avoiding rolling off the edge. For a moment, all I could do was lie there, gasping for breath. Zephyra's massive hands pressed against the floor, pushing herself up. She was trembling. That was horrifying, she muttered, voice shaking. I exhaled sharply. Welcome to my life. No time to rest. Above us, searchlights cut through the night. Drones. The corp wasn't going to let us slip away so easily. I pulled Zafara to her feet. Or at least I tried. She was still adjusting to her new size, and when she stood, she towered over me. She pulled the remnants of her robe tighter around herself, her cheeks flushing indigo. I'm still too big. People will stare. People will shoot if we don't move, I shot back. Come on! She nodded hesitantly, and we sprinted across the hauler's surface. Well, I sprinted. She accidentally launched herself 5 meters. Ahead with a single step, Zephyrus stumbled. How do I... Smaller steps. She did her best to follow my lead as we reached the edge of the hauler. Below, the city streets loomed, a labyrinth of flickering holograms, hovering taxis and congested highways. The perfect place to disappear. The only problem, getting down without dying. Zephyra glanced at the endless drop and paled. Another fall? Really? I checked my HUD. The security drones were closing in fast. We had seconds at best. I spotted our best bet, a vertical transport lift descending between 2 buildings. If we timed it right, I grabbed Zephyr's arm. Jump when I say. She gulped. The drones locked on. Now we leaped. The rush of air tore at my jacket as we plunged toward the descending transport. Zephyra, still unaccustomed to her newfound strength, overshot her jump, barely catching the edge of the lift. With one hand, I on the other hand, slammed into the platform with all the grace of a dying comet. Ow, I groaned. Zephyra pulled herself up beside me, wide-eyed. I didn't mean to jump that far. I rolled onto my back, laughing breathlessly. Yeah, I figured that out mid-air. The transport continued its descent, slipping into the shadows of the lower city. Above us, the searchlights faded, the drones sweeping the rooftops instead. We had lost them, for now. As the lift reached street level, I peeked over the edge. The lower city was exactly as I remembered, a chaotic sprawl of markets, neon bars, and underground operations. Perfect for hiding. Zephyra clutched her arms, trying to shrink into herself. I stand out too much, she whispered. What if someone reports me? I scanned the crowd. Plenty of modified humans, cybernetic freaks, even a few off-worlders. But no one looked like her. I sighed. We'll figure it out. We stepped off the lift, melting into the crowded streets. My cybernetic HUD pinged with dozens of encrypted transmissions. Black market vendors, smugglers, bounty boards. I needed a contact, someone who could get us off the grid before the corp tracked us again. Zephyra tugged at my sleeve. I don't understand. Why did you help me? I stopped, looking up at her. Even hunched over, she was impossibly tall. Her violet eyes searched mine, filled with confusion. Because, I said, I don't let people get turned into experiments. Her blush deepened. I don't know how to repay you. You don't have to, I replied. Just don't get us killed. A flicker of a smile crossed her lips, but before I could say anything else, my HUD blared a warning. Wanted fugitives detected. Bounty alert. 100,000 credits. Zephyra's face went pale. That's bad, right? I exhaled sharply. Yeah, that's very bad. The bounty had just made us the most valuable targets in the city, and every hunter, mercenary, and cyber thug in this sector. They were all coming for us. The second that bounty alert hit, I felt the city shift. The neon-lit sprawl of Sector 12 had always been a hive of underground deals, cybernetic mercenaries and off-world smugglers. But now it was a hunting ground, and we were the prey. Zephyra walked beside me, her every step careful, her frame impossibly large compared to the average street dweller. She was still trying to pull the remnants of her robe tighter around herself. But it wasn't enough. She stood out, a towering, blushing Nixian with curves that defied physics and a face that screamed, wanted fugitive. And in a city where 100,000 credits could buy a new life, We were dead if we didn't move fast. I pulled my hood lower and grabbed her wrist. Head down, keep walking. She obeyed, but I could hear her breath hitch. She was nervous, and she should be. The underbelly of the city had no loyalty, no rules. People would sell out their own families for a fraction of what we were worth. We weaved through the marketplace, past augmented street vendors peddling black market implants, neon tattoo artists, and dealers selling off-world narcotics. I could feel eyes on us, scanners humming, hackers pinging their systems, trying to confirm the bounty. I spotted a holoboard flashing updates. Fugitive alert, dangerous escaped experiment and human accomplice, armed and unpredictable. Approach with caution, dead or alive. Zafara saw. It too, her breathing quickened. They put my face on the bounty? I tugged her behind a rusted hover truck before she could spiral. Yeah, they want you back. Her eyes darkened. They won't take me. I almost believed her. If she could control her new strength, she might be able to rip apart anything that came at us. But right now, she was unstable, and we couldn't afford a scene. I needed a contact. Someone with the tech to scramble our IDs, get us off-grid, and find a way out of the city. I opened my cybernetic HUD and sent a silent ping to an old connection. Rider.exe. Status: active. Rider was an info broker, one of the best. If anyone could get us what we needed, it was her. But finding her, that was the hard part. We need to get to the Mirage, I said, pulling Zafara forward. She frowned. What's that? A club. Front for a black market network. Club? She repeated, clearly horrified. I forgot how modest Nixians were. Even a casual bar scene would be a cultural nightmare for her. I gave her a look. It's either that or getting shot in the street. Her blush deepened. Fine. The Mirage was buried deep in the city, nestled between abandoned factories and neon-drenched alleyways. The entrance was subtle. No glowing signs, no obnoxious bouncers, just a single red door with a retinal scanner. I pressed my eye against the pad. Access denied. I tensed. Ryder changed the codes. Then the scanner buzzed, and a hidden speaker crackled. To life. Well, well. Thought you were dead, Kane. I smirked. Ryder, open up. A pause. Then the door slid open. Zafara hesitated, staring into the dimly lit corridor. This place feels wrong. That's how you know we're in the right spot. She groaned, but followed. The inside was a chaotic fusion of music, smoke, and flashing lights. Bodies moved in the shadows, some human, some modified beyond recognition. Augmented. Enforcers stood at the corners, watching for trouble. Ryder was waiting for us at the VIP lounge. She hadn't changed. Cybernetic blue hair, neon tattoos pulsing like a circuit board, and a half-smoked synth cig in her fingers. You've got a death wish, she said, exhaling a cloud of vapor. That bounty? You'll have every hunter in the city on your ass in under an hour. That's why I need you, I said. Her gaze flicked to Zafara. The alien girl was doing everything in her power not to meet anyone's eyes. Ryder raised an eyebrow. So, you're the experiment. Zafara's jaw tightened. I have a name, Ryder grinned. Relax, big girl, I don't sell people. She turned back to me. What do you need? Fake IDs, scramblers, a way off world. Ryder whistled. That's a lot. And you're not exactly rolling in cash. I leaned in. I know you owe me, Ryder. Her smirk faded. She hated being reminded. She exhaled, rubbing her temples. I can get you a temporary scramble and off-the-grid housing for the night. Off-world, that's going to take a miracle. I nodded. I'll take what I can get. Ryder tapped a few commands into her holopad, then looked at Zafara. And you need a disguise. A big one, Zafara froze. A disguise, Ryder grinned. Oh yeah, you're a walking bounty poster right now. A few minutes later, Zephyra stood in front of a mirror in a makeshift dressing room. The disguise was something else. A long cyber cloak, embedded with hollow projectors to distort her features. Thick industrial boots to weigh down her steps. And a mask, black, sleek, covering everything but her glowing violet eyes. I smirked. Not bad. Zephyra crossed her arms. I hate it. Ryder clapped her on the back. Good, that means it works. I checked my HUD. 1 hour left before bounty hunters swarmed the city looking for us. We had one night to disappear. Then we had to find a way out before it was too late. The disguise helped, but not enough. Zephyra still walked like she had too much strength in every step, her movements stiff, uncertain. The cybercloak's hollow projectors distorted her size slightly, but nothing could fully mask how unnaturally large she was. Every time she shifted, the weight of her own form seemed to catch her off guard. I led her through the dim back alleys, behind the mirage, avoiding main streets. The lower city was alive with neon lights and artificial rain, a never-ending pulse of shadows, flickering ads, and unseen threats. The farther we moved from the club, the quieter it got. That was a bad sign. Stay close, I muttered. Zephyra nodded, her masked face turning toward me. Do you think your friend will actually find us a way off-world? Ryder's got connections, I said. But it's not just about the right people. We need the right time. She hesitated, and if we don't have time, I didn't answer, because I already knew we didn't. A hunter would find us soon. The bounty was too high, too fresh. The Corp had put 100,000 credits on our heads, and that kind of money, it sent out a signal. Every back-alley killer, cyber-enhanced bounty chaser, and ex-military mercenary in the city was probably looking for us. Zephyra stopped suddenly. Someone's watching. I barely had time to react. A figure dropped from the rooftops above, landing with an impact that sent ripples through a puddle at our feet. They found us. I reached for my weapon, but I already knew I was too late. The hunter was fast. Inhumanly so. She straightened from her landing, stepping forward. Her combat suit gleamed black, fitted with integrated armor and cybernetic reinforcements. A glowing red visor obscured her face, feeding her real-time data. But it wasn't just the armor that told me she was dangerous. It was the way she moved. Not rushed. Not sloppy, every step calculated, every movement efficient. She had done this 1,000 times before, a professional. She tilted her head slightly. The voice that came through her helmet was mechanically altered, calm, smooth, devoid of emotion. Kane. Zephyra. Surrender now. Zephyra stiffened beside me. Her body tensed, like a coiled spring about to snap. I stepped forward instead. And if we don't? The hunter didn't hesitate. She moved, so fast I barely had time to register the strike. A blur of motion, then a sharp impact against my ribs. My cybernetic reflexes kicked in just in time to twist away, but the force still sent me skidding backward. She was enhanced. Before I could recover, the hunter pivoted towards Zephyra. Zephyra tried to react, but she was still getting used to her body. Her movements unrefined, her balance off. The hunter seized the opening. She launched a plasma blade, the red energy searing through the air, aimed directly at Zephyra's throat. Zephyra barely dodged. The blade skimmed past, cutting through the edge of her cloak. Sparks flew as she stumbled backward, her massive frame colliding with the alley wall. The hunter adjusted her stance. "You're untrained," she observed, voice devoid of any arrogance. "Your mutation gives you power but no control. That makes you weak." Zephyra's fists clenched. I could see the frustration in her posture, the shame. I needed to stop this before it got worse. I lunged forward, drawing my sidearm, aiming directly at the hunter's exposed flank. She saw it coming. In a single motion, she twisted, caught my wrist, and wrenched my arm downward. A sharp, precise kick to my knee sent me crashing to the ground. I barely bit back a groan. She was too damn fast. The hunter loomed over me, pressing her foot against my chest. "I don't need you," she said calmly. "Only her," Zafara snapped. She moved before she could think, before she could doubt herself. A single wild punch. She missed. The hunter sidestepped with frightening precision, then drove a shock baton into Zephyra's ribs. A surge of electricity crackled through her body. Zafara cried out, staggering. I could see it in her eyes. Fear, not fear of pain, fear of failing. The hunter exhaled softly. "Pathetic," she murmured. Zafara froze. Then her entire body began to glow. The air around us shifted, pulsing with energy. The broken lights in the alley flickered violently. The ground beneath us trembled. The hunter hesitated for the first time. Zephyra screamed. Not a normal scream. A sonic shockwave. The force ripped through the alley, distorting the air itself. The hunter was blasted backward, smashing through a stack of metal crates. Sparks erupted from every nearby electronic. The hollow ads overhead glitched and died, and then silence. Zafara panted, her massive frame still trembling. I pushed myself up, my body still aching. "You okay?" She didn't answer right away. Her fingers curled into fists. "She was right," she whispered. "I'm weak." I frowned. "You just tossed a professional bounty hunter across the street." "That's not weak," she shook her head. "I had no control. I just lashed out." Before I could argue, the sound of shifting debris made me turn. The hunter was getting back up. Even after that, she was still standing, but she didn't attack again. She just stood there, analyzing Zephyra. The red glow of her visor flickered for a brief second. Then she spoke. "This isn't over," she said simply. Then she turned and disappeared into the shadows. I exhaled, tension still coiled tight in my muscles. Zephyra stared at the spot where the hunter had vanished, her expression unreadable. "She's going to come back," she murmured. "Yeah," I said, "but next time." I looked up at her. "You'll be ready." She met my gaze, and for the first time since we'd escaped, she believed it. Zephyra was quiet as we moved through the backstreets. The neon haze of the city blurred against the artificial rain, soaking into the torn edges of her disguise. She had barely spoken since the hunter vanished. I knew that look. Doubt, frustration, fear. "You need to stop overthinking," I muttered, scanning the streets ahead. She didn't answer at first, just exhaled slowly. "She could have killed us back there." "She didn't," I pointed out. "She had the shot. She walked away instead." Zafara's jaw tightened. "Why?" I had a few theories, but none of them were good news. That hunter wasn't just another freelancer chasing a paycheck. She was corp-trained, and that meant she wasn't here to make a quick buck. She was part of something bigger. "We'll figure it out," I said. "But we won't get another chance if we don't move." I sent an encrypted ping to Ryder, signaling our location change. If the corp's best were already on our trail, then we needed to vanish permanently. Zephyra followed, but she still seemed off. She wasn't just doubting her strength, she was doubting herself. She spoke again, voice softer. "I thought getting out of that lab meant I was free, but now..." Her fingers curled into fists. "Now I feel more trapped than ever." I stopped and turned to her. The artificial glow of a nearby neon sign cast sharp shadows across her mask. She was scared to take it off, scared of what people saw underneath. "You want to stop feeling trapped?" I asked. "Then start fighting for yourself." She blinked. "You've been running from them for so long," I continued. "What happens when they can't take you back, when you choose what happens next?" For a long moment she didn't say anything. Then, finally, she nodded. I didn't realize it at the time, but that moment, that was when everything changed. Ryder's signal led us to an abandoned transit station deep beneath the city. The place had been gutted, metallic bones exposed, old power systems sparking intermittently. The perfect place to disappear. I knocked. Twice on a rusted maintenance door, a mechanical hiss sounded as the locks disengaged. The door slid open, revealing a dim-lit room packed with holoscreens, drone parts. Zafara's fingers twitched at the nickname but said nothing. Ryder swiped a few commands across her holoscreen, pulling up a flight manifest. "You wanted an off-world exit? I might have found you one." I leaned in. "How solid?" "Better than nothing." That didn't inspire confidence. Ryder tapped the screen, showing a classified transport route. Cargo freighter leaving in 6 hours. Unregistered ship flying under Corp radar. Smugglers, not the cleanest exit, but no one. "We'll be scanning IDs." Zephyra crossed her arms. "Where does it go?" Ryder shrugged. "Does it matter?" Zafara stiffened. I glanced at the manifest. The destination was Morrigan Station, a trading hub near the outer colonies. Not ideal, but far enough to disappear. I turned to Zafara. "It's our best shot." She hesitated, then finally nodded. "Good," Ryder said, "because it's already booked, but there's a small problem." I sighed. "There's always a problem." Ryder smirked. "The pickup point's at Dock 47. Zephyra frowned. "And?" Ryder flicked a holoscreen toward us. A red warning flashed across the display. "Corporate lockdown. All exits restricted." I clenched my jaw. "Security just tripled across the docks," Ryder continued. "They're expecting you, probably monitoring every transport hub in the city." Zafara exhaled sharply. "So what do we do?" Ryder leaned forward. "You do what you're good at." Zafara tensed. "Which is," Ryder grinned, "break things." It wasn't smart, it wasn't safe, but it was all we had. I pulled up a map of the security network around Dock 47. The corps locked down every legal exit. But the freight tunnels? Still unmonitored. Zafara folded her arms. "Let me guess. We go underground." I nodded. "Old transit tunnels run beneath the docks. We follow the tracks, bypass security, then surface inside the restricted zone." Ryder blew out a puff of smoke. "And hope no one notices 2 high-priority fugitives walking into an active lockdown?" "More like hope we get to the ship before they catch us." Ryder exhaled. "Well, that's a terrible plan." Zafara glanced at me. "But it's our best shot." I nodded. She exhaled, then straightened. "Then let's do it." We moved fast. Time was against us. The freight tunnels were a rusted maze of forgotten infrastructure. Pipes leaked condensation, flickering emergency lights barely illuminating the path. The air smelled of metal, damp stone, and burnt circuits. Zephyra crouched low, adjusting to her size. Even hunched over, she was massive in the narrow tunnels. I checked my HUD. 1 hour until the freighter departed. No room for mistakes. Then, a sudden movement in the darkness. Zafara's hand shot out, grabbing my shoulder. "Something's here." I froze. Listened. The tunnel was too quiet. No distant echoes, no dripping water. Just silence. A feeling crawled up my spine. Then, a flicker of red in the dark. Motion. My stomach dropped. I grabbed Zephyra's wrist and whispered, "Run." She didn't hesitate. We sprinted through the tunnel as shadows moved behind us, fast, relentless. Then a voice, cold, mechanical, familiar. "You didn't think I'd let you leave that easily, did you?" Zephyra's breath hitched. "It's her." I didn't need to look back to know who she meant. The hunter had found us, and this time, she wasn't letting us go. The moment I heard her voice, my pulse spiked. Every instinct screamed at me to move. Faster, faster, because we weren't escaping this time. She was here to finish it. Zephyra ran beside me, her breathing sharp, controlled. The tunnel twisted ahead, narrowing, walls closing in. Behind us, footsteps echoed, not rushed, not frantic, measured, Calculated, a predator playing with its prey. We hit a dead end. A rusted security hatch blocked the tunnel, thick metal reinforced with old corp tech. Zephyra's hand slammed against it, fingers digging into the corroded edges. It's sealed, she said. I spun, pulling my sidearm, aiming back into the darkness. A flickering light overhead revealed a silhouette stepping forward. Tall, armored, moving with the kind of deliberate grace that only came from years of hunting people like us. She stopped just outside the light. The red glow of her visor pierced the shadows. "You made this harder than it needed to be," she said. I tightened my grip on my weapon. "That's kind of our thing," she tilted her head slightly. "Not for much longer." Then she moved. Fast, too. Fast. A flash of steel. A throwing blade cut through the air. I barely dodged, the blade slicing past my shoulder, embedding itself in the wall. Before I could react, she closed the distance. A kick slammed into my chest, sending me crashing into the hatch. Pain exploded across my ribs, breath knocked from my lungs. Zephyra turned, roaring as she swung a massive fist toward the hunter's head. She missed. The hunter ducked, pivoted, then struck back. A compact elbow to Zephyra's ribs, then a baton, crackling with high-voltage energy, smashed into her stomach. Sparks burst as Zephyra staggered, gasping. The hunter wasn't just fast. She was precise. She knew how to break someone down, step by step, weakness by weakness, Zephyra growled, eyes burning. "Get behind me," she muttered. She didn't wait for me to respond. She lunged. This time she didn't swing wildly. She adapted. When the hunter dodged left, Zephyra adjusted mid-motion, shifting her weight. Her massive form collided with the hunter, slamming her against the tunnel wall. A dent cracked through the metal. The hunter grunted, but before she could break free, Zephyra grabbed her wrist and squeezed. The sound of crunching armor filled the tunnel. The hunter let out a sharp breath. For the first time, she was the one trapped. Zephyra's eyes gleamed. Not so fast now. The hunter's visor flickered. Then her free hand moved. I saw the small cylindrical device just as she pressed it against Zephyra's arm, a detonation charge. The explosion wasn't lethal, but it sent Zephyra flying backward, crashing into the tunnel floor. Smoke filled the air, the scent of burning. Metal sharp, the hunter landed in a crouch, breathing hard, her damaged gauntlets sparking. She flexed her fingers, shaking off the impact. "You're learning," she admitted, "but you're still too slow." I raised my weapon. One shot, one opening. She turned, and I fired. The bullet never reached her. A flick of her wrist, and a pulse shield ignited, absorbing the impact. The bullet flattened against the shimmering energy field before falling uselessly to the ground. She exhaled. Predictable. I clenched my teeth. She was playing with us, testing us, seeing how far we'd go before she ended it. Zephyra groaned, pushing herself up, her body still shaking from the blast. I glanced at her. She wasn't out yet, but she was running out of time. We needed an exit. I turned back to the hatch. Ryder had said these tunnels were old transit routes. That meant I looked up. There, an emergency access vent. It was small, too small for Zephyra, but for me, just enough. I made a decision I hated. I ran. Straight for the wall, jumping, catching the vent's lower ledge. I pulled myself up as the hunter turned. She realized what I was doing. Too late. I ripped open the vent panel, exposing a manual override. The moment my fingers hit the switch, the tunnel's pressure systems engaged. The security hatch behind Zephyra burst open, the old failsafe activating, the emergency locks overriding. A blast of steam and rushing air roared through the tunnel. Zephyra was sucked backward, straight through the open hatch. I barely had time to grab the edge of the vent before the force pulled me in too. The last thing I saw before the hatch slammed shut. The hunter. Still standing, still watching, and she wasn't done with us yet. The world lurched violently as I tumbled through the emergency vent, the force of the airlock override slamming me forward. My arms scraped against rusted metal, the narrow passage squeezing my ribs as I slid. Through the confined shaft. A sudden drop. No time to react. I hit the ground hard. Pain exploded through my side, but I didn't have time to feel it. I forced myself up, coughing, lungs burning from the pressure shift. The hatch had worked. I was alive. I turned fast, scanning my surroundings, a secondary maintenance corridor, the air thick with dust and the stench of burned-out circuitry. But more importantly, just a few meters away, Zephyra. She was slumped against the wall. Body still, her cloak tattered from the blast. For a moment fear gripped me hard. Zeph? I moved fast, dropping to one knee beside her. Hey! Hey! She stirred. Her fingers twitched, eyes flickering open. Her gaze met mine, hazy at first, then sharpening. Her voice rasped. She coughed, groaned, then slowly pushed herself up. She was still breathing, still here. Relief crashed into me so hard I nearly collapsed. I exhaled, steadying myself. We need to move. Zephyra looked around, her mind catching up. Where? I pointed toward the corridor ahead, narrow but leading toward the dock sectors. We're close. She nodded, shaking off the pain. Then let's finish this. We ran, the tunnels stretched long and twisting, old transit maintenance routes that had been abandoned decades ago. The farther we went, the louder the distant hum of engines became. The docks were above us. I checked my HUD, 20 minutes until the freighter departed. Then alarms. The low hum of the station was suddenly overridden by warning sirens. A deep, mechanical voice echoed through unseen speakers. Alert! Unauthorized entry detected in Sector 6. Security teams en route. Zephyra shot me a look. That's us, isn't it? I gritted my teeth. Yeah, she sighed. Figures. We reached a ladder leading up to the dock access hatch. Zephyra gestured for me to go first. I climbed, fingers aching, my muscles burning with exhaustion. But the moment I reached the top, I saw it. The docks, massive cargo freighters lined. Up in the vast, high-ceiling terminal, their engines humming, workers in exosuits loading crates onto the transports. Towering metal, scaffolds stretched overhead, illuminated by blinking nav lights and the cold glow of station security drones. And at the far end of the docks, our ship. A mid-sized freighter, its hull dented and patched together with scavenged plating. A smuggler's. Vessel, no doubt, our ticket off-world. But between us and the ship, a squad of armored enforcers. Zephyra climbed up beside me, eyes narrowing. How many? I counted fast. 6. Heavily armed. She exhaled. We don't have time for this. Agreed. We had to get past them. No other choice. Then, movement. Across the docks, stepping out from behind a cargo loader, another figure appeared. Not a guard. Not a worker. Her, the hunter. Zephyra stiffened. You've got to be kidding me. I felt it too, that cold, creeping realization that we had run as far as we could, and she was still there, waiting. The enforcers didn't react. To her arrival, they didn't raise their weapons, didn't flinch, because they weren't here to stop her. They were here to help her. I cursed under my breath. They're working together. Zephyra's fists clenched. Then we go through all of them. She said it like a promise. I smirked. Now you're thinking like a fugitive. She gave a small, sharp grin. Then we moved. We launched. From cover, sprinting straight for the docks. The enforcers spotted us instantly. Shouts rang out, weapons raising, but Zephyra was already there. She hit the first enforcer like a wrecking ball, slamming into his chest, sending him flying. Backward into a cargo crate. The impact bent the metal on impact. The second fired, but I was faster. I raised my sidearm and shot first, the round punching through his visor. He crumpled. Zephyra twisted, grabbing a third enforcer by the wrist and yanking him off his feet. She turned, swinging him like a battering ram, slamming him into 2 others. 5 down. 1 left. The last enforcer hesitated, then turned to run. Zephyra grabbed his collar and lifted him off the ground. Tell your boss we're leaving. she growled. Then she hurled him into a fuel crate. He didn't get back up. We ran for the freighter. 5 minutes left. We were so close. Then a pulse round hit the ground at my feet. A warning shot. I turned. The hunter stood between us and the ship. She didn't rush, didn't charge. She waited, like she already knew how this was going to end. She lifted her weapon, a high-density plasma caster, the kind that could melt through hull plating. A cold, mechanical voice. "It's over." Zafara stepped forward. "Not yet." The hunter shifted, adjusting her aim, right at Zafara's head. I reacted instantly. I pulled my last flash charge from my belt, clicked it active, and threw it. A blinding burst of white light exploded between us. The hunter flinched. That was all we needed. Zafara grabbed me, yanking me forward, sprinting toward the freighter's ramp as alarms blared across the docks. The engines were already spooling. Up, the thrusters vibrating through the floor. We leaped onto the loading ramp. I slammed my fist against the external control panel, sealing the hatch just as a burst of plasma scorched the metal behind us. Inside the ship, the deck shook violently as the freighter lifted off. I barely had time to breathe before Zafara grabbed my arm, steadying me. The ship pitched upward, the G-force pressing us into the floor. I looked at her, breathless, exhausted, but alive. She met my gaze. Then, for the first time since we'd met, she smiled. We had done it, we were off-world, we were free, but somehow I knew this wasn't over. The ship trembled violently as it punched through the upper atmosphere, the force of acceleration pressing me against the cold metal floor. The freighter's engines screamed as they strained to push us clear of the planet's gravity well, and for a moment I wondered if the old ship was going to shake itself apart before we even made it. But then, silence. Not true silence, but the kind that comes when you cross into the void. The distant hum of the thrusters steadied, the artificial gravity kicked in, and the weight of everything we'd just survived hit me all at once. I rolled onto my back, chest heaving, my pulse still hammering in my skull. My ribs ached from the fight, my lungs burned from the sprint, but we'd done it. We had actually done it. Beside me, Zafara groaned, stretching out her limbs. "If I never see another enforcer again, it'll be too soon," she muttered. I let out a half-laugh, half-sigh. "You and me both." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. We just breathed. Then a voice crackled over the ship's comms. "You two still alive back there, or did I just risk my neck for some fresh corpses?" I sat up, glancing toward the cockpit door. That had to be the pilot, one of Ryder's contacts, no doubt, a smuggler, someone who didn't ask too many questions. Zafara pushed herself up with a wince. "We're alive, barely." The pilot chuckled. "Good. Would have been a pain to dump your bodies mid-flight." The ship rocked slightly as it adjusted course, and through the viewport I caught a glimpse of the stars stretching endlessly beyond. We were officially off-world. We were free. Zafara stood, rolling her shoulders. Even after everything, she still looked restless. I sighed. "You're thinking about her, aren't you?" She glanced at me, then away. "She let us go once. She won't again." She was right. The hunter hadn't just been another enforcer. She was different, smarter, more patient. She had let us run, watched how we moved, how we fought. She wasn't just trying to capture Zafara. She was studying her, and that meant this wasn't over. I stood, ignoring the ache in my legs, and crossed the cabin to the viewport. Below us, the planet shrank into the endless void. I let out a slow breath. "She's coming after us." Zafara stepped beside me, arms crossed. "Let her." There was something different in her voice now. Resolve, strength, a sense of control. I turned to her, arching an eyebrow. "You're not running anymore, are you?" She smirked, just slightly. "No," she said, "not anymore." And for the first time since this all started, I believed her. Zafara wasn't just a fugitive anymore. She was something more. A survivor, a fighter, someone who had finally taken control of her own fate. and as the stars stretched endlessly ahead of us, one thought settled deep in my chest. No matter what came next, we were ready.